Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is Tyson Gentry. We got our NFL show today, Tyson. A lot to discuss in terms of the playoff picture that we'll get into. Crazy game coming off Monday Night Football. We got to talk about the GOAT. We got to talk about Tom Brady as much as that pains you.
Oh, it doesn't pay me at all. I mean, I'm the idiot holding the Bucs Super Bowl futures ticket from preseason. So if anything, this is good. It's good to be me today.
That's fair. So let's just jump right in, man, before we touch on the rest. I mean, Brady's just spectacular. They look dead. Honestly, like it just looked like another Bucks and Tom Brady inept against Saints game, and then that fourth quarter there were little mistakes that the Saints had that kept the window open. Here come the Bucks. Here comes Brady, and all of a sudden they figure it out and win the game in the last second. Like it was just so vintage. It looked like something that he's been doing his whole career.
It was perfect. Like the execution on that drive was perfect. You know the other team is screwed, right? In those 2-minute situations when they're taking timeouts. As soon as you get down there, and then it's like, shit, there's 35 seconds left. He's gonna run 4 plays. We need the ball back. That's how you know you got him right where you want him. Tom Brady ran that whole sequence perfectly, and not to mention they scored twice. Really, when they need to score once, one gets called back with a holding penalty. And we'll talk about what this means for the Bucs going forward here. But what do you think about that comeback? I mean, this is like, it's nostalgic, dude.
It was definitely nostalgic. We just watching Brady go to work. He finishes, the frustrating day, his stats, 281, 2 touchdowns. If you had the under, God, man, you are probably speaking because that thing was dead for the entire time and you were looking good. And then all of a sudden you got to burn that ticket. But, it was nostalgic. It just reminded us, how good this guy really is that at 45, he's still doing this. But I think in a bigger picture, maybe a more important picture probably than just giving Brady the flowers he already has, this seems like something when they won the Super Bowl, there was like some certain moments that sparked them to go forward and win the Super Bowl. Now, this team, we've been saying it, we've been waiting for it for a long time, Tyson. It's hard for me to be like, all of a sudden now this team will figure it out when they haven't done it all season. They've been up and down. Could this be the moment late in the year where they finally figure this baby out and put something together and then are able to go for it and actually look like the Bucs we thought preseason?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, man, they still look bad. Like for 58 minutes or 52 minutes or whatever it was at game time, they look like a bad football team. And if we're gonna go, like this was a great comeback, and they had another one a couple weeks ago. But if you look at it, and they beat the Rams like without Matt Stafford in a comeback in a 2-minute drill, and then they beat Andy Dalton and the Saints at home on Monday night in a comeback. It's not exciting. Like those are, you get juiced because you won the game, and they're still leading the division because the division sucks. But they're not doing this to anybody. Like the Saints are sitting they have the 5th worst record in the NFL right now. Right, the Lions are about to get a top 3 pick from the Rams. They didn't do this to good teams. If you swap those logos out, and let's say they beat like the Lions and the Browns of years past, people would be like, "What's wrong with the Bucs? Like, why are they in dogfights with these teams?" But it's new faces this year, so we're like, "Oh, holy smokes! Well, maybe they're going to turn this thing on." This doesn't look like a good football team to me. Still, like the offense, they're just laboring to get anything done. They still can't run the football. Mike Evans apparently has disappeared off the face of the planet for the most part. Like, I don't know where that came from. K. Dotton and Rachaad White have been godsends as rookies here, but that's really been the bright spots. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean they're struggling, man. The only thing that is a good thing that the Bucs have right now is they're leading this division, and I don't have FanDuel's not updated right now with their current odds to win the division. They've got to be a massive favorite now. Seems like they're starting to clear it out, and the Bucs are gonna win this thing and be in the playoffs, and they'll be the 4 seed because they're gonna have the worst record here. But let's talk about the NFL playoff picture and the NFC in general, since the Bucs are there, and it looks like they're going to have a place in the tournament at the end of the year. Quite honestly, what do you expect? Like, what noise can they make going forward? I know they have their struggles, but this is a Super Bowl winning roster. The coordinators, Bowles and Leftwich, were both there. Brady was there, and this entire core was there. Can they actually do this thing and make a run?
Well, their defense isn't as good as the top level defenses in the NFC this year. I think like the Eagles defense, Cowboys defense are better. The Niners defense is better. Those are the 3 that are going to end up above them, funny enough, in the standings. But that's kind of what it's about. And then the offense isn't outscoring anybody. So to me, like you're going to have to win playoff games 13-10 or 20-17, and that's just not really doesn't look like something that's sustainable this season in the NFC with these offenses that are just dumping 40 on people week over week. But again, I think that there's going to be a lot of love for him in the betting market because this season has been so weird, and like I said, the faces are just new, and so people are like, "Well, there's no way like the Cowboys and Eagles they can't be that good. We're going to play Tom Brady here." When in reality, I mean, what's the line if they were to play the Commanders or the Giants tomorrow?
I think on a neutral, I think you still go Bucs. Probably given 3,
Which is
on a neutral field.
It's ridiculous.
Which is crazy to think about, right? Like if we go into the season, that's on a neutral, that's a 6-point line, maybe more. I mean, it's the way the Bucs have played, they played themselves out of the kind of like that juggernaut or that favorite type of thought. And quite honestly, we're going to learn a lot next week, Tyson. We have the Bucs facing the 49ers. How good is this offense when you play a legit defense? They struggled tonight against the Saints. They figured it out towards the end. But you're going to need to do that every single time in the playoffs. And right now, they'd be matched up against the Cowboys. If playoffs started today, that's a good defense as well. So we're going to get a look to see how good they are against a legit defense in the Niners. Which, speaking of the Niners, let's talk about them. Tyson, Jimmy Garoppolo feels so bad for him, breaks his foot, out for the year. Here comes Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the whole shtick. The rookie coming in, game managed pretty well and got a victory over the Dolphins. Really a game that was dominated by the defense. Rumors now they may be going after Baker Mayfield, which I think would be insane. But legitimately, like this, we know this defense is awesome. What are their chances now without Garoppolo?
A lot lower. I'll tell you that much. We were on here a week ago saying, I don't like the Niners are really good, but I don't know why they're down here with everybody else on these Super Bowl odds. And a lot of people got suckered. It seems like because this week, if you believed in the team with Jimmy, you obviously believe in him less, but you still should have some belief. This is the best defense. Arsenal of weapons. The Baker Mayfield thing makes no sense. I was hearing people say, well, he ran like pretty much the same offense in Cleveland, which he didn't. Let's just get that out. Stefanski and Shanahan might look similar, but they're doing like different things. And what has Baker Mayfield shown in the last 3 years to make you go, okay, he's changed? Like this is a guy who's going to run the offense. It sucks because this team was coming around and looking like they might end up being the betting favorite to come out of the NFC the way they were really shaping things up. But I mean, we're a couple days away from the Drew Brees rumors, man. It's getting dark out there.
And right now on FanDuel, there's nothing NFC wise. Obviously, with the Bucs winning, that impacts the odds a little bit in this injury. So there's no market open there for conference winners. But just for Super Bowl, Niners plus 1,200 to win. They're the same price as the Bengals, who are also plus 1,200. Vikings plus 1,600, and then sandwiched below them, the Cowboys are plus 750. That's the neighborhood they're in. And I agree with you. It's going to be way more difficult with Brock Purdy. And I always look at it this way. When you have a quarterback, like what's the value of having a great quarterback? Like obviously it makes you good and it helps you move the ball and score points. I look at it this way too. We know this defense is legit. And they're legit because that offense can churn the clock, right? They run the football. Jimmy doesn't make mistakes very often. He gets the ball into his playmakers' hands, and the offense is flowing. When you can't convert third downs, the defense has to be on the field more. The other team gets more possessions. And over the course of the season, we're going to have 4 weeks now and then playoffs. There could be a lot more miles put on that elite defense. Fred Warner could get hurt. Nick Bosa, we know, is injury prone. That secondary is banged up. If these guys start limping into the playoffs because they have to play more possessions due to this quarterback injury, that completely changes how we look at the Niners.
And the other thing that's going to do is it puts a lot more tape out there. Okay, this worked. They did this, and they were able to get 4 yards when they were in this formation here. Like it's getting scary in San Francisco, which is, like I said, it's a bummer because this team was looking really good. But if you watch Brock Purdy in college, like maybe you're a little bit encouraged because I don't know if a lot of these people watch him slinging around. I mean, he was leading one of the best offenses in college football a year ago, and he wasn't necessarily doing it right. Breece Hall finds the end zone pretty much at will, but like he's not as bad as people are saying, and I think that they're just going to have to be comfortable rolling with him. But again, man, a week ago the Bengals were plus 1,700 and the Niners are plus 650. Things change quick.
And listen, man, we got to talk Vikings. We're talking NFC. You know, they continue to win close games. They are now 10-2, 9-0 in one-score games. Complete flip of the script from what they were the past couple years under Mike Zimmer. But the question remains, man, are the Vikings good or are they just lucky? And I think there could be a little bit of both here if I look at it. But 9-0 in one-score games suggests that there's a major kind of falling back to the mean or water hitting its level, for lack of a better term, coming, or regression. And does it happen this year? Or is this just one of those magical years where they hit everything? Or does it come next season? It's coming. It's around the corner. It's hard for me to tell right now when it's going to happen for this team.
Yeah, I think they're both lucky and good. I think they're just 50-50. Like, when you look at this team, it takes a good team in the NFL to be in one-score games 9 times. Right? Like, let's get that out of the way. If you have a chance to win at the end of the game 9 times through 12 weeks, you're looking pretty good. Obviously, they've won all of those games. That's unsustainable, like you said, but that's something that we see kind of year over year. And as it builds, like, the Vikings are going to be able to go into playoff games against the Eagles, against the Cowboys, against the 49ers and say, well, we've been here and we haven't lost yet. And not for nothing, but like the Cowboys and the Eagles haven't had to play these one-score games. So this is like, you could be in unfamiliar territory where the Vikings are right at home. It's almost something that from the outside looking in, you're like, this is such a fluke. But then when you start digging into it and start examining it, this might end up being an edge.
And you might have the best player on the field at any time with Justin Jefferson.
I don't think there's a might. I don't think there's a might.
He's just that good. And that defense, I mean, say what you want. They've shown that they can get shredded up. Like, the Cowboys took them to town. That was honestly a great spot for the Cowboys. Like, that was one of the spots of the year. It was my favorite play of the month, actually, in November. But they've shown that they can be situationally good. Like, they stopped the Jets, and I know, the Jets. But the Jets offense was moving the ball, and then when they got to the red zone, they completely stopped them. Like, that defense plays and shows up in big spots and has timely stops and gets timely turnovers.
The one thing I will say is there's like a distinct lack of good offenses in the NFL this season. And they haven't hardly had to play anybody with good. When they have, the Eagles beat them, the Cowboys beat them. We'll see this week. They're playing Detroit obviously in a dome, but they're actually underdogs to a below 500 Detroit Lions team, which is insane to think about. I don't think this might be like the first time I can think of off the top of my head. But to me, that just means, like, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm pumped. I'm like, perfect. Nobody's paying attention. They're still not watching us. They remember the Bills messing up on the goal line. Because that was the story, right? It was, Bills. Like, can you believe they messed this up? Justin Jefferson just happened to have 185 yards and 3 touchdowns or whatever in that game. They put themselves in a position to be there. And they're doing it against teams that don't have the best offenses, and I think that's the scary part. But as long as you win football games, man, you just got to get into the dance. Once you're there, anything could happen.
Absolutely. And then obviously the Titans right now, Titans of the NFC, they're healthy. They're ready to rock. It seems like they're on a collision course. Eagles, Cowboys. Now, you and I are Eagles fans, so we're a little jaded here. But here's the thing. Here's what I was hearing. So after the Cowboys stumbled through the game with the Colts for a long time, and then that fourth quarter they exploded and scored like fucking 40 points or something, and it blew this game out of proportion. People are like, well, the Cowboys, I mean, there was no asterisk in that one. They look great. I'm like, they were struggling with the Colts for 3 quarters. And then they just got the momentum going, and the Colts quit in that quarter. Like, they just flat out quit. This Jeff Saturday thing, juice is out of the building. It's done. Like, people are ready to be done in that franchise. Like, they don't want to do shit there. And now all of a sudden people are boosting this Cowboys up. Dak Prescott continues to make mistakes in vital times. And meanwhile, with the Eagles, you're going to point to them struggling with the Colts. We know what happens when you get an interim head coach. There's an immediate boost. That's not going on there now. So it's hard to compare those two teams in two situations. Meanwhile, for the Eagles, you have a quarterback playing himself to an MVP conversation. Jalen Hurts looks incredible. This offense is firing on all cylinders. And this defense is only going to get healthier, and they are going to get back Jordan Davis, who's their run stopper. Like, I don't know how anybody can look there straight and say that the Eagles are a worse team than the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, the Colts thing is funny, right? Because the Eagles struggle with the Colts. Look at what we just did. Cowboys lost to the Packers, and the Eagles hung 350 rush yards on them, dominated them. They beat the Titans, who are a playoff team in the AFC, Derrick Henry had 38 yards earlier in the day. It was 35-10, but it happens in the early window, so we forget the Cowboys have the benefit of going last, and then it's like that's all anybody talks about till Monday night, and then now we'll talk about Tom Brady till Thursday. Cowboys are really good, dude. Like really good. This offense is scary. There's playmakers all over the field. It just doesn't feel this is just such bird's bias, but it just doesn't feel like it's good enough to me. Like when I'm watching this team, it's like, okay, you're making mistakes, but the team you're playing against isn't good enough to capitalize on those. Number one offense in the league since Dak came back, all that's awesome, and it's really cool. Tony Pollard can't pop 80-yard touchdowns twice a game against everybody, right? This is just this is a really, really hot streak from a really, really good player. But if you expect this to continue until February, you're outside of your mind. And then let's just go ahead and we'll talk about the quarterbacks here. I had a little stat I wanted to show you. So Dak's been awesome since he came back for the most part. He's had some mistakes, like you said, a couple interceptions here and there. But remember how the Eagles couldn't throw the ball because they ran against the Packers, and it's not because of the way that they scheme games and just beat people at what they're bad at. Since week 8, Jalen Hurts leads the NFL in total touchdowns with 17, passing touchdowns with 14, passer rating 119. He's completed 70% of his passes and has 9+ touchdowns at 20 yards and only 1 pick since week 8. So to me, not only is that the MVP, but that is a guy playing on a different level than just about everybody else in the NFC right now. And they're getting confident. They just played their most complete game. This almost, and I hate to say this because it just sounds bad, but this feels a lot like the Cowboys to peak in November, December, and then be not there on their couches by January. This is like, where's the ceiling for this team, for this Dallas Cowboys team? Because if they're getting better than this, they're winning the Super Bowl. But if this is the final version of this team, they're not even the best in their division.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. A ton of points there, and just want to let that marinate for a bit. I guess the only thing I'm going to add on that too is I agree with you, and I kind of came off a little pompous or a little dismissive of the Cowboys. They are a really good team, and for the reasons you laid out, they have elite skill position players.
Sick. They're sick. They make plays all over the field. You're not safe when you have the ball. There's Micah Parsons coming. They might end up intercepting it. They take advantage of everything, but you can only scavenger hunt for so long, brother.
Exactly. And here's the other thing, too. When we talk about this, and I think people sometimes forget it, it's not always about the best team who wins these things. The Eagles are going to have home field advantage, and they're going to get the bye. Like, that is a huge, huge advantage towards Philadelphia in this because they have a 2-game lead on the Cowboys and the tiebreaker. It's going to be really hard to go through Philly when the Eagles only have to play 2 games. They get healthy, and they just get a run down your throat because they're good enough to do it.
And the last thing I'll say on the Birds, but apparently they haven't beaten anybody good yet, but they beat a third of the NFL. So, exactly. I mean, what are we talking about? And if the Cowboys get points for beating the Vikings, then so said the Eagles, right? Like, I mean, the Titans suck now. I mean, which way we've seen Dallas lose games in a couple different ways. Granted, Cooper Rush was quarterbacking, but as far as Philly goes, like unless they have 3 wild turnovers, injuries and all that stuff, you can't beat them. And that sounds arrogant and whatever, but that's the reality of the season to this point. The only time they lost was when Quez Watkins, 70-yard pass fumbles. Dallas Goedert fumbles. A.J. Brown fumbles. All those are back-to-back-to-back. Those things don't happen regularly. So unless something like that happens in the playoffs, it doesn't look like anybody has the recipe to beat Philadelphia.
Yeah, and if this was like a small sample size, sure. But we're on 13 weeks now, guys. Like, it's time to give the Eagles some respect here. Okay, valuable bets. I was going to have a little section for us, but like I said, since the Bucs just got done, NFC is getting reset. There's nothing on FanDuel right now, unfortunately, for us to pick through. So let's jump into the AFC, and it's talk about Clash of the Titans like we did with the Eagles Cowboys. Seems like we're on another collision course for the Bills and Chiefs. And just setting up right now, Bills need to thank their stars that Joe Burrow and the Bengals have the absolute advantage over the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what's going on with that. It's awesome, but the Bengals, for some reason, figure out a way to beat them. And now, due to that, the Bills are the number 1 seed back in the AFC. They have home field advantage. They're 9-3, but they also have the tiebreaker over Kansas City because they beat them. They also have the easier schedule. they are the favorite to finish as the number 1 seed in the AFC. Right now, when you look at it, who would you back, Bills or Chiefs, coming out of the AFC?
Out of those two, that's tough. I would lean Chiefs probably. I still think the Bills there's just an air of like anoint us, like we're here, we're ready. Like they haven't won shit, and we keep pretending like, oh, this is a team that went to the AFC Championship game. They went to the AFC Championship game. They didn't win the AFC Championship game. They didn't win the Super Bowl. This is a team that, like, as far as playoff success goes, they're fine. Like they're above average over the last couple of years. But we act like this is a team like, holy shit, like watch out for the Bills. I would lean the Chiefs off of experience, but I have a hard time right now, given the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. I mean, I'm looking at Cincinnati, and those boys are coming. Like, there's not a whole lot you can do to stop that offense. Jamar Chase breaks his hip, and all of a sudden he's hurdling guys, and there's no issue. They're missing Joe Mixon right now, and they're still putting 30 bombs on everybody. Like, this is a very versatile Cincinnati team who might just be led by the guy playing the best football at the quarterback position right now, and that's Joe Burrow.
If I'm leaning Bills because I think they're going to have the number 1 seed. Right now, they're plus 185 to win the AFC. Chiefs are plus 230. Bengals, which we'll talk about a little bit next, plus 700. It's all setting up for the Bills, right? Like last year, it seemed like they lost. They had to go to Arrowhead. But to your point, we talk about this Bills team like they're the Chiefs, like they've been to the Super Bowl, like they've done this and done that. No, they've only been to one AFC Championship game, and they blew it at the end. Like they just couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get over the hump. Yes, the Chiefs had this unbelievable comeback, but if you're an elite team, you don't allow that to happen, or at least if you do allow it to happen, you come back with a vengeance. And it seems like the Bills did that early. They started to stumble. It looked like Kansas City was just going to run away with this thing, or at least be comfortably taking home that 1 seed. The door's wide open for the Bills to get refocused and make a statement that they are the best team in the AFC. I like this Bills team. I still think they have the most talented roster in the NFL. They're banged up. I think they're going to get healthy at the right time, and they're going to figure things out with that offense and really start to pour it on teams. And we're going to be like, oh, shit, that's right. That's why the Bills are the favorite.
I'm getting sick of it a little bit. Just getting sick of waiting on these guys. When you look through the AFC, we thought, like, at the beginning of the year, like, it's Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, Bills, Chiefs, Bengals. Like, those are the 6. And 3 of those teams have stayed at the top. Miami's not getting a lot of love from us here on the pod today, but I think if you listen back through our episode, we've given them ample love, but we've also alluded to some of the things that could happen and that manifested themselves in that 49ers game. And that's why I'm not interested in them to win the AFC. Granted, they could score with anybody. And if it comes time to do it, and we're in a track meet, I like my chances with Miami. But it's the AFC is shaking up to get pretty weird here in the playoffs, especially with Lamar. We'll see what happens.
Let's talk about your Bengals. And I have them Bengals, Darkhorse again. And it's not like they're the same unknown or like, oh, look at these guys. We kind of like them. Like, we know they're good. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl. They were 3 minutes away from hoisting that Lombardi trophy up with Joe Burrow as the MVP. Like, we know how good this offense is. We know how good their defense is in spots, and their defensive coordinator is super talented. The reason why I say that is because we don't talk about the Bengals like they're the Chiefs and like they're the Bills. It's like, ooh, wow, Bengals beat the Chiefs again. Do you think the Chiefs can still win the Super Bowl? It's like, no, we just move on from the Bengals. And it's not like, we look at the Bengals like, holy shit, they just beat the Chiefs. They are coming. It's like, wow, that was cute. Okay, so week 14, what do we got next? And where are the Chiefs at? Where are the Bills at? I still think this team can contend with anybody. I mean, listen, we just saw what Jamar Chase did last week. T. Higgins is still legit. I mean, Samaje Perine, he's getting run, and yeah, Joe Mixon's not there. You add 2 backs now that you can actually legitimately trust. You don't have to run Joe Mixon into the ground. That's a huge advantage they didn't have last year.
And one of the key factors to their playoff run last year that I think has gone under the radar to this point is, like, nobody talks about how C.J. Uzomah was really, really good for the Bengals at the times they needed to win games last year. And we thought, oh, Hayden Hurst is going to come in and they're going to be able to do this and this. And the offenses looked different, and it looked stagnant. It looked bad for a good part of the season. It doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like the most complete unit in the NFL. And as far as the Bengals go, it's like we keep waiting for Josh Allen to, like, can Allen beat Mahomes? Burrow did it 3 times in a year. Can Burrow beat the Bills? Well, Burrow played in the Super Bowl, and they didn't, right? So to me, it's like we talk about you got to show me. And if we're going to go by that mantra here on this show, then the Bengals have shown what the Bills haven't. And the fact that these are $6 off basically on a betting line, it's a lot of disrespect from the public.
And let's talk maybe even the odds makers too. Like they're setting it. They're the ones setting these things, and yeah, obviously the public can pound it down, and get it down to 5-1. But that line's set, and the odds makers are like, we don't believe in it. And sometimes the odds makers in these future markets, man, they're slow to react to things. And so we'll talk about in our valuable bet section if there's anything we want to hit right now as we get closer and closer to playoffs. But last thing I just want to talk about big picture wise. Lamar Jackson's hurt his knee. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. I think they said PCL sprain or something, so it's a week-to-week type of deal. I don't think he's going to play this week against the Steelers. Tyler Huntley comes in. I think he's a top 3 backup in the NFL. I legitimately think he can start. I think he definitely can start for Houston. I think he definitely can start for Carolina. It feels like people are starting to think the Ravens season's done. They're still the winner. They're still leading that division. They have the tiebreaker over Cincinnati. Where are you at with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson's injury and just kind of the whole thing surrounding Baltimore?
I mean, I've been at the same spot essentially with the Ravens since before the season kicked off. A little bit higher on them, obviously, when J.K. Dobbins was able to play football. We thought he was going to. That didn't last very long. But Lamar's looking around the AFC, and especially at his peers at the quarterback position, guys around his age, guys he came in with, guys that have come in the league a couple years after him, and it's like, I'm the only one that doesn't get toys. Like everybody else in the league gets a big name wide receiver or goes out. And I know they drafted Rashad Bateman, but if you look at Rashad Bateman's college tape, it kind of always screamed, I'm a yak guy. Like Lamar, like Mark Andrews is a really good player, but he's it. That's like, it's DeMarcus Robinson. It's the ghost of Deshaun Jackson sometimes. James Prochet's out there throwing interceptions. Devin Duvernay had a couple touchdowns early in the year, and everyone freaked out. Like the skill position group is bottom 5. That's why if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm taking the week off. You guys haven't paid me my money. I can't. What am I supposed to do? Like I'm making the plays. I'm one of the highest rated passers in the NFL. And if you go look at the tape, go look at the drops and look at where the drops happen. And some of the criticism on Lamar is like, oh, they're not scoring points. It's like, well, there's 2 drop touchdown passes 2 weeks ago, and that you end up losing the game. You've had a 9-point lead in every single game that you've lost. This is unfair almost to Lamar Jackson. And then, of course, he doesn't really do himself any favors. He hops on social media, starts complaining after the loss last week, and then goes out this week, and it's like, well, of course he's not going to play. The dude's soft. It's like, well, if you had $260 million on the table, would you risk it? And so to me, it's like Baltimore's not playing to win the Super Bowl this year. In that locker room, I think that there's going to be some things that are like if I'm Lamar Jackson, I just can't see. I know he loves football and I know he's a competitor, but like this is real life. This is generational wealth, and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, he's such a loser. He doesn't want to go out and like try to help his team win. He's been playing his ass off all season long, and all he gets is like, look at the numbers. Numbers are fine. Look at who he's throwing the football to.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting when you talk about it, like who's he got around him, because we see the weapons with Burrow. We see what the Dolphins just did to go get their weapons for Tua. Herbert, sure, there's some coaching things potentially there, but they've had legit weapons there. And
Jalen Hurts gets A.J. Brown.
Hurts, right.
Josh Allen, they go out and they get him Stephon Diggs going into year 3. Like you look through everybody that he's been drafted with or around that's having success, and he's the only one in this circumstance.
Yeah, and so I'm interested to see how it looks with Tyler Huntley. I mean, I'm a big Tyler Huntley guy. He led them down to a game-winning drive with like 95 yards, 97 yards, whatever it was, to beat the Broncos against like a top 5 defense in the NFL, maybe top 3. I'm curious to see how this looks, because if it looks more dynamic through the air, and I don't necessarily know if Huntley's a better passer than Lamar. I think in bits and bursts he could be. There's got to be some legit questions surrounding where this offense is with Lamar Jackson, kind of where this thing's going to evolve to. I know he wants to be a passer. I know they want him to be more of a passer, but is it you got to go get what? I don't know. I'm curious to see this thing. I don't think Baltimore is dead at all with Huntley. I like I said, I think he's a very capable backup, and he can go out and win games. I mean, Cooper Rush was winning games in this league. I think Huntley can do the same thing with Baltimore. So it's going to be an interesting, like you said, narrative point surrounding Lamar Jackson's decision that for how long he wants to sit out. If it's something that he can come back from and let's say 1 week, but he's like, no, I'm going to sit out until X amount. What does that do in the locker room? What does that do for the front office? What does that do for the narrative surrounding him? I don't know. I know one thing: Ravens are in this division. They are leading this division. They have huge games coming up against the Browns and the Steelers. Do you honestly think the Ravens are good enough to hold off the Bengals and win the AFC North?
No, I don't. I don't know if they were good enough with a healthy Lamar Jackson. I mean, they've been winning in weird, unconventional ways. That's what I'll say. Throughout this year, it's like every game they're winning by 14 at some point, and then they're tied, and then Justin Tucker has to try it out on the field and try to kick a 50-yard field goal. It's happened like 4 times just this season, right? It's crazy. And to me, it's what does Baltimore do well? Well, they run the football well. They control clock. They play physical football. They don't score enough to really be scary to the other teams in the AFC as currently constructed. I mean, we're talking
they
about
used to.
Right. Well, they played a little different too in years past, but this is like, and even if they do go win the division, if they played the Bengals in the first round of the playoffs, the line is going to be the Bengals. It's going to be even at worst. Like the Bengals will probably end up being favored by kick in a game like that. And when you run through the AFC, they can't score with the Bills, can't score with the Chiefs, can't score with the Bengals. We've already seen they couldn't score with the Dolphins, right?
Right.
I just don't think they're scaring anybody.
Well, that moves us to our valuable bet section here, Tyson, because we don't like to hedge on the show. We like to have conviction, but Bengals are sitting at plus 125 to win the AFC North. I have huge liability. I've tied in with a couple different things on Ravens to win at plus money. We got them for. I have Ravens tied in with the Eagles to win their divisions. I think I have Ravens, Eagles, Vikings to win their division. So I think I gotta go Bengals here just to cover my ass on that. So Bengals plus 125 to win the AFC North is going to be a bet for me. Another one I was looking at here, Tyson. Now this is a long shot. And I was talking to you a little bit about this. Cleveland Browns to make the playoffs is plus 820. I mean, really? Let's look at it here. They're 5-7. The team who's in the playoffs picture right now is the New York Jets at 7-5. Mike White, maybe. That the Jets defense is good. Is that worth the flyer to you? I mean, the Patriots are at 6-6. I think they suck. The Chargers, I think they want Brandon Staley fired. I think the Browns have a legitimate shot to make the playoffs here and back in at that 7 seed.
I didn't see anything from Deshaun Watson on Sunday that made me think that that quarterback that we've seen be a Pro Bowler and in contention for all pro teams didn't look like that guy was home. Didn't look like he lived there anymore. Granted, it's his first game in 500 days, so he theoretically should get better, but like that's just a lot of rust to knock off, especially with new pieces. He wasn't allowed around the facility for like 8 of his 11 weeks of his suspension. Amari Cooper found great chemistry with Jacoby Brissett, but they play so different. Him and Deshaun Watson, Donovan Peoples-Jones. We thought, like I still think that's going to be one of Deshaun's favorite targets, but there wasn't a lot of love, and they were playing the worst team in the NFL, Brad.
Right.
And they were getting like Nick Chubb can't get 2 yards against the Texans. You get a safety. This is bad. So I don't like it personally, but you've been tied into the Browns as far as like player props go all year long.
I know. So I'm thinking about it. That's something valuable I may give out in our chalkboard. Is there anything you're playing, whether it's a Super Bowl position you want to buy in on, anything conference or division wise?
Well, one thing I am interested in is the NFC West. And if you look at it right now, the San Francisco 49ers are minus 400. and the Seattle Seahawks are plus 320. They're a game different as far as the standings go, so the Niners do have the edge. But they get to play each other in 2 weeks, and that's when we'll get to find out because the Seahawks go and play the Panthers on Sunday. And we're looking at it, and that should be a win. It's the NFL. Anything can happen, obviously. But, like, if the Seahawks roll into that game with the 49ers and they're even, that line's going to look way different. If Brock Purdy comes out and it's Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, because that's what the offense looked like. When Brock Purdy came in, it was like, okay, throw it to Christian, hand it to Christian. Those were, like, the only plays they were running, and it worked because he's a freak. But this thing in Seattle has been magical, and I think I want to get in on it for the end of the year. I haven't really had a chance because they jumped out to such a huge lead in the division early on that it was like, I don't really want to play this at plus 240, but now we're here. They're a game back. They're playing a team with the 256 draft pick or whatever it is at quarterback. Geno Smith's throwing for 400 a week. I think I like Seattle. Value-wise, I don't know if they're going to win the division, but I think that this is as close as it's going to be.
Yeah. I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So, I don't know if Tyson can hear me or not, or technical difficulties, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. So we appreciate you guys watching as always. Chalkboard. Make sure you check us out on there. That's going to be linked in the bio.
Oh, I do have
Instagram,
one more value bet.
_ the Roundtable Pod.
I got one more value bet that I think is going to make you puke. But if we're in the interest of giving people good money, Dallas at plus 330 to win the division isn't so bad because they have to play each other on Christmas Eve. And if Dallas wins that game, like, they win the division. That's pretty much what this thing's going to boil down. So if you think Dallas is better than Philadelphia, this is the time to get in because this is the only time that this line is going to look like this.